Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. This is Professor Paul Miller. I'm sitting here today with a full house. We are sitting here today with theater director Janet Bixler, with Jada May, with Steve Osango, and of course my co-host today, Darren Green. We're going to be talking about the upcoming student original created play, Truth, that's going to be showing at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater Wednesday, May 17th through the 19th at 7:30, and a special matinee on Saturday, May the 20th. So it's such a pleasure to have you all here today. I just wanted to thank you very much for taking time out of your day to come down and chat with the Nightly News. But for right now, I'm going to turn it over to Darren. He's got a few questions for the group.
Okay, hello. My name is Darren Green. I'm the student activities correspondent at the Nightly News Podcast, and I have some questions for Ms. Bixler and friends. Let's start off with how you feel about this particular creation play.
Well, that is a very loaded question. I am always excited about an original play coming to fruition and taking the stage in production. This one has been a bit of a challenge because, and I think the students here today, the actors, will speak to this a little bit. This play, at the suggestion of Jada May Woodfolk, who is one of our actors, has taken on the form of a more traditional play, where it has a clear beginning, middle, and end, and the characters develop, all weave together their own little storylines to create the bigger story, which communicates the broader message of the play. And that is an intricate and delicate process that involves a lot of commitment to the writing process, which is something that in the form or in the past original productions, we didn't do a lot of writing. We might create one scene here or one scene there, but a lot of it, the students would just talk it out a little bit, get up on their feet, work it out through improv, and then solidify it. And they would find the way to tie them together without being a big beginning, middle, and end, but more episodic. So in the desire to have a more traditional play form of beginning, middle, and end, we've had more challenges. But it's very exciting because it's happening, and it is a challenge.
Well, I also want to know, what inspired you to start these creation plays? I know it's like this is the third time, and I'm pretty sure you've been around. You was here for a while. So what started it?
Well, back in college, when I was a student, maybe in 1989, I took a class. I don't even know if any of y'all were born then.
No, not yet.
Oh. I took a class called Drama for the Classroom Teacher, and it taught you how to use drama exercises in the classroom to bring excitement to the students' learning and to draw connections in a personal way. From there, I was inspired to get my master's in theater education. And there I specialized in drama and education, where you use theater and drama techniques to teach the core curriculum. But after grad school was over, I found myself working with all different groups of students from preschool all the way through high school. And more often than not, teachers and administrators were asking me to create plays with the students on a specific topic. And from there, I found my true love of creating original work. And it's actually called applied theater.
Okay, that's interesting. So what are can you give us some examples of like the ones in the past?
Well, would we like the students to speak on that? Okay. Steve-O was in Survivors Among Us, our first original student-created play. So was Jada May. And Jada May was also in our second student-created play, Dreams and Nightmares. So would you like Steve-O to share his experience on Survivors Among Us?
Sure. So Survivors Among Us was basically a play that we talked about survival, but not just like survival in like the wilderness or anything like that, but it was like it had to do with as human beings, we've all survived certain circumstances, situations that that make us people, that give us experiences. And I believe mine was, if I remember, I survived the struggle, like, being brought up. And but I believe Jada's was, do you want to speak on that or no?
Well, Steve-O, So Steve-O was alluding to the structure of that play, that the students brought their own stories of survival to the project, and we told those stories through a theatrical lens. And Steve-O, more specifically, if I may share, was an incident back in, I think, 10th grade, when he very much had strong feelings for this young lady, and she rejected him. And if anyone knows Steve-O, it's a little hard to believe. And they were actually close friends prior to his going out on the limb and really wanting to take the relationship a little bit further. And then how a young man survives that, which led beautifully into Jada May's story of, do you want to speak on your survival story that you shared? And all the stories come from the students' lived experiences.
Okay, so my survival story was basically being brought up in a very strict household and having certain limitations, a regular routine, going to school, doing whatever extracurricular activities we have to do, coming straight home, making sure that homework and all your assignments was completed, dinner, going to bed. There wasn't much time for me to hang out with my friends and socialize. Which, being into high school at that time, there's this negative connotation with having to be in a certain group and doing certain things in that group.
Well, go ahead, Steve-O.
She was looking for a man at the time, and she got to college, and she found one, so it worked out.
Well, that's not exactly the case. I mean, she found Steve-O to be her scene partner because she needed a man in her scene. And Jada then went on to be really specific and talk about her survival of growing up in a very disciplined household with very high expectations of how to behave as a young woman, and then that push and pull of becoming a young woman and aware of her sexuality and trying to make those smart choices of how can I come into my sexual self and still respect my upbringing and my personal morals and beliefs. And yeah, that was a really beautiful piece of theater because she created it with Steve-O, who was played the role of the man that she wanted and was pulled towards as her young sexuality was coming out. And then two other actors were pulled in, and they played her parents that were constantly reminding her of the expectations. So the first play was about the students' stories of survival and how they survived them into thriving. The second original student-created play was called Dreams and Nightmares, The Remains of Our Days. And it was not an episodic play, whereas the first one was. We had a story, and then a story, and then a story. Very episodic. This one, while it had a beginning, middle, and end, it was surreal because it took place in a sleep clinic. And the doctor character was actually, you find out at the end of the play, is a patient in the sleep clinic who cannot come to terms with her dreams and nightmares, and she wants to control it all and eliminate all of them. And so the whole play is actually her living through her nightmare. And all of the material of that came from the students' actual living dreams and nightmares and their sleeping dreams and nightmares, the student actors. So Jada, do you want to talk about your piece in that or how that one came together?
Yeah, sure. So Dreams and Nightmares was a very tricky production to do. We had to really depict what a dream was and what a nightmare was and how you wanted to correlate that into the original production. I know for my piece that I had, it was more so a nightmare, but it kind of revolved into like a dream. It was knowing my dream. I would have these reoccurring dreams about telling loved ones and people that I would see on a daily basis about God and asking them, do you believe in Jesus? And making sure that I was doing my Christianly duties. In my dream, I wasn't doing them. I wasn't asking the questions, and I wasn't making sure that people were on the right path. So a result of not asking those questions, there was a day where a bunch of clouds had appeared, and I started to ascend up while everyone else that I knew and loved and cared for were stagnant, staying on the ground. And so it kind of spoke to me and made me realize, instead of staying quiet and instead of not doing what I'm supposed to do, I should, step out of my comfort zone and ask those questions that, can be or feel, uncomfortable to ask.
And the big message we were looking at in Dreams and Nightmares was, can you live your dreams? Do you allow your nightmares to control you? But where does your own humanness and your own agency take over what we might consider our destiny? And how do our dreams and nightmares inform us, both when we're sleeping and the ones we're living?
Okay. Well, let's talk about this play. Can we get the synopsis of what Truth is? Like, what is the title? What is the name of the show?
Well, the name of the show is Truth, and we could have gone lots of places. I actually thought the students would go politically because of our recent election and the talk about truth from the political angle and alternative facts, but they did not want to go there. They went very personal. There's a saying, are you living your authentic life? Are you living your truth? And that's one angle we could have gone, but again, we didn't go that way. As the students worked through the concept of truth, they started to really look at and think about a truth that they are living right now. And either what the consequences of that is, or whether the reward of living that truth now, or the power of living that truth, or as we have now further developed the piece, and I think you guys could agree with this, the realization of self now that you've been reflecting on the truth you're living. Some of the truths are uncomfortable. Some of the truths are empowering. Some of the truths are very gray, like they go on both sides of being empowering and being like sucking you in a little bit, like bringing you down. Do you guys agree? Like, because the three of you are actors in it, Darren, Steve-O, and Jada.
Yeah, what she said. I think as an actor, we all personal stories and tried to, didn't. We did. We found a creative way on how to show the audience on how a truth can be handled, how a truth can be, portrayed this way, that way. So I think it's pretty creative. I think I would pay the little $3-5 to come see it, especially if your boy's in it. But yeah, I think it's pretty creative because when talking about truth is pretty blunt. So there's definitely a creative aspect to it. So everything she said, I attest to.
So we're here with some of the cast of Truth. We have theater director Janet Bixler. We have Steve Osango, who's playing Martin. We have Jada Mae Woodfolk, who's playing Esther. And we also have Darren Green, who's playing Cornelius and Anderson. Darren, I did have one question for you real quick. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit more about the fact that you're two different characters.
Okay, so I got this idea from a show, and I thought about having my character have two different names, Cornelius and Anderson, because in the story, I say that I want to be named Anderson. I changed my name. Well, I tell people I changed my name, but it's not legally done. But what I did was, somewhere in there, me and Jada's character have a little talk, and and she asked me, why did you change it? Why did you change it? Well, what famous commentator is named Cornelius? Like, we see famous commentators on TV all the time, and they have the craziest names, and you would distinct them by their name. Like Cornelius is, yes, that's why I had to change it. And that was the whole story of why I had two names.
I thought that was interesting. That was one thing I definitely wanted to ask you. Mm-hmm. Darren, do you have any other questions for the group here?
How was it like? Well, I know because I'm in it too. So how was it like going to the rehearsals and the practices? How did you feel about it?
I felt great because I genuinely like acting. So, but when you're building an original script, an original play, original ensemble, I think it's you start from the trenches. Mm-hmm. So that is kind of a migraine sometimes. But if you genuinely like what you do, you work through it and persevere.
Yeah.
What you got to say, Jada?
To sum up what Steve-O said, in the beginning of creating an original production, it can be very tedious, but through the rigorous actions of coming and getting to, you get in a place where you start to trust your fellow actors and actresses, and you get to know who they are. You know, I know Darren, I would see on campus quite often, but I would never say anything to him, or, you know, I just keep walking and doing my own thing. So, you know, being an original production, you're there a little bit more longer than a scripted play or production already. So you really get to learn who that person is, and you get to create a relationship with that person that you can take outside of these plays, these ensembles, and things of that such. So, you know, it's a hard process, but it's definitely a masterpiece once it's completed.
I did have a question for you here very quickly. I know that nothing ever is perfect. Can you just give us a little bit of insight about maybe some of the hardships that you developed throughout this whole process, but also how maybe some of these hardships are going to help in the end make things better?
Scheduling is a monster. So making sure that we actually get enough rehearsal time while the students work jobs outside of school, while students go to class, and some of them have night classes when we typically are doing rehearsal, and some of them have jobs on campus, and of course they have classes they have to take. So finding enough time to rehearse. And we only have 8 actors in this show, which is great because it's very tight. However, 8 different people with 8 different schedules, it's really hard to get enough time for everyone to meet up. And because this is an ensemble show, unlike the first show where I could rehearse an individual story without all the actors there, I need all 8 actors basically all the time because they have quick interactions, their characters with each other overlapping and weaving together, much like life. When you're having a conversation with a group of people, one person is talking and interjecting and responding, and there needs to be that energy, that natural flow, and you have to develop that over time. So scheduling was a bear for this one. Also, we were lucky to have several students. Let's see, we have Steve-O, Jada, Hewley, Danielle Farber, and Tita. So that's 5 people that have been through the creation process before in some way, shape, or form. And so they came with an understanding of how, when you work, like they've already alluded to, when you work on an original work, you go through frustrations. And Jada used a great word, it's tedious. And Steve-O said, he basically said, you know, if you commit to that part of it, it gets a lot easier. And like Jada said, the production at the end is rewarding. But for the new people, it can be really foreign. Going through not only the tediousness of it, but also going through the unknown. Like, how is this ever going to become a play? So they have to put in a lot of trust. And sometimes I would like to just work the work and not have to do all of the reassuring that we are definitely getting to a place where you will be completely comfortable. I've been lucky with the actors, the new actors. They've been pretty trusting of the process, but it's hard because the students don't get paid to be in the shows. They aren't getting credits to be in the shows. We don't have a theater department or degree, so they're not increasing their portfolio by being in the shows. They are doing this simply because they have a desire and they're volunteering their time, which a challenge for me is they could walk away at any time. Another challenge in this show was to make sure everyone was actually having fun, because we chose to do a very traditional linear play, and it is intricate. And in that tediousness, people can get frustrated and sad and lost. And so it was really important that I was very concerned that people were still having fun. Whereas the other 2, I didn't have to worry about it because Dreams and Nightmares was so absurd. Yeah. We were moving at rehearsal all the time. We were staging fights. We were screaming. We were running around. Like, there was a lot of playfulness in that one. And in Survivors Among Us, because we could do so many individualized rehearsals, they had a lot of individual attention. There wasn't a lot of waiting around. Mm-hmm. In this one, it was actually a lot of talking and writing and not physical movement.
Definitely.
Jada and Steve, I had a quick question for you guys. Can you walk a novice, which I would certainly say, of course I'm a theater fan. I love to come and support you guys. I've certainly been to Broadway several times, and even locally I try to get out to as many as I can. But for someone who's sort of a novice in the creation of such a play, can you walk us through the whole thing from the very beginning to now and how you develop something like this?
Like, you talking about the play, or you talking about this particular one?
Yeah.
Well, everybody has to be on the, like, we all sit around a table and we all have to be open-minded to what we want to do, not just open-minded to my ideas, but, anybody at the tables. And you just have to go from there and basically, hey, do you like this? Do you like this idea? And if, sometimes like we have to go in chronological order, or sometimes somebody can just like one thing and we go from there. It's kind of like, it's definitely a process, but it's a fun process. Like I said, we're all creative in our ways, and we try to put that together. So usually that would be step one, just sitting around and writing stuff down, notes.
How long would you say it took to write this?
We're still in the process.
It had to, yeah. I mean, it took weeks. I mean, from where we started, Miss Bixler had us saying, "What is our truth? Like, what is something about you that you may particularly don't talk about all the time?" And it was kind of hard. It took us a long time because, I'm an open book. So finding my truth, I think I was the last person to figure out, okay, what is this? And then after we had our truths out, Miss Bixler, she figured out, okay, so these two people seem to favor each other, so let's try to make a dialogue piece with them in this scene. And that's when she came up with it. And basically, we're still we still working on it.
This past Friday, around 3 p.m., we finalized the working script, and we only need the tiny little button lines from each character. I mean, we already have Steve-O's button line for his character Martin, and we have Malcolm's button line. But, the script is finally done. But we've been on our feet in the rehearsal process, working out the script that we have and discovering what we needed to go. So we've been on our feet rehearsing. It's just this play's been a lot of at the table working out the storylines.
Right, and we also even had to bring a specialist like Shashawn. She's like a poet. She actually does what you do to broadcaster and everything. She was just there to like help us with like finding out what we really are. Like your brother, your sister, all that. So just to go deeper into what truth you are. So that helped. I mean, we got a lot of ideas from that. So I'm just, giving specifics on like what we did.
So let's talk a little bit more about the show times. You're going to have 4 shows. They're going to start on Wednesday, May 17th, and that'll run Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for 7:30 shows. And then you'll have a matinee on Saturday, May 20th at 2:30. It is a running time of approximately 70 minutes with no intermission. Tickets are going to be $3 for students and $5 for general admission. You can certainly buy them at the box office an hour ahead of the show, or you can go online, and we will have the link associated when we put the article up for this. One final thing that I just wanted to chat with you guys all about here before we come to the end of our podcast today. What does this individually mean to you? Janet just said about how you guys are all doing this in a volunteer type scenario. Tell me what acting means to you and why you love to do this and why this is something that you choose to spend your time that frankly you could be doing other things with. Why is this something that's so important to you?
Well, for me, I was here previously on the other podcast talking about like what I do YouTube wise and social media wise. I create videos. So actually, for the character I'm portraying, Martin, he talks about failure. So it kind of has to do with me because I make videos, like I said, and sometimes people are not gonna like my stuff, and they're gonna comment, "Oh, what kind of video is this? What are you even doing?" And that's okay, And there will be times that I will fail, not just to other people, but in myself, so as like if I talk about myself, I want to be an entertainer, so this stuff is not just now, it's like forever for me. So Yeah.
So you use this as a way to build your acting experience so you can move on and continue to be an entertainer.
Exactly.
Jada, why is this so important to you? You've been one of the most people involved in the CPC Players ever since it was created here on campus. Why is this so important to you?
Acting, as cliche as it sounds, it really gives me a way to express myself. You know, I'm a very dramatic individual. So doing these productions with director Bixler and my fellow actors and actresses, you know, I have a way to, you know, be over the top and, you know, sometimes isn't always accepted in class. I have to tone it down sometimes. So being in theater, you know, I can act out and do my thing and have fun with it. So
great answer. Darren, why is this? I mean, this is really one of your first experiences going through that with us. Did you have any background before you came in here in theater?
With acting, no.
So for you, someone who would, by their own admission, still sort of a rookie, what does this mean to you? I mean, especially your first time through this creative process.
Well, now I know it's not all the glamour of being an actor, because that's where I coming into this. That's what I expected. Like, I always thought that I can, you know, act. I mean, I can act, but it's just like, it's hard. I mean, like, you can't, like, I remember we did a scene. It was a scene where I tell Esther, Jada's character, I'm telling her it's a new me or something like that. And the way that Miss Bixler wanted me to say it wasn't the way it was coming off. And that's what's kind of hard for me. And I guess that's what I learned. I'm just like, you know, acting is not really, you know, you acting like yourself. You trying to act like somebody else. So it's really difficult. Even though my character is kind of similar, it's still kind of difficult. And acting is just, I think it's fun. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of dedication that you have to do. It's a lot of sacrifices. I mean, it's a lot. But in the end, it's fun. And it's something that you're doing for the community, in which I love supporting and being a part of things.
And certainly something you can look back on and be very proud of yourself when you're finished.
Yes.
And last but not least, I would just like to, first of all, thank you for the wonderful job that you do. But I'd also am curious what the final project means to you. I mean, I know this is your job, and you're very humble with your talents. But what, honestly, you know, after the first night's over, what does it mean to you to have these wonderful students that think so highly of you, even with all the ups and downs?
Well, to go back real quick to a point you made to Darren about being proud that you did this project, we're in this production. I haven't told the cast this time. I mentioned it, I believe, in Survivors, and I mentioned this during Dreams and Nightmares. But a lot of actors who are out working in our community right now, and even working professionally at regional theaters and larger theaters nationally, a lot of actors will not do what you're doing. Not only because the process can be tedious, it's because you have to get really, really vulnerable. And you have to be willing to be flexible, go with the flow, because we're constantly developing it, but you have to be willing to dig deep, because the audience doesn't want to see anything superficial. A lot of actors just want a script in their hand from a very good playwright. And that good playwright has provided you with wonderful lines that allow you to develop a character who is vulnerable. But these actors who don't come with a lot of training from high school are willing to lay bare, you know, put out there their stories, which makes them vulnerable. And in that vulnerability, they're growing as human beings, but they're creating a piece of theater that will speak to all of the audience because it's everyone's story. I don't think they understand the magnitude of what they're doing in the world of arts, because a lot of professional and trained actors won't do this because it's scary.
That's incredible. I guess I never thought about that. I always thought as actors as being so creative, and the fact that so many of them wouldn't want this opportunity to me. I mean, and I know it's probably different than what they're used to, but still, I think to be able to create something that's unique and new, and a new idea is just, I think that's what you should strive to do. But I'm surprised that you said that. We're learning all kinds of fun stuff here today.
Well, and the reality is there are the vast array of published playwrights who are talented and gifted. There are so many actors out there that want to work and perform those scripts. That's one reason. But it's also the fear of putting yourself out there as completely yourself and then developing a theatrical piece around it, knowing that you're exposed.
That's that creativity I was talking about, see?
Well, thank you guys all very much for coming. I just wanted to, one more time, run by, we're talking to the cast of Truth, the third student-created play here at the Capitol Blue Cross Theater. We have been joined today by Steve Osango, by Jada Mae Woodfolk, and by Darren Green, but of course, our theater director, Janet Bixler. Janet, one final question for you here, and then we're going to call it a day. As soon as you're done with this, you're starting right back up with something else. Tell us a little bit more about what your plans for the summer term are.
Okay. So our final performance for Truth is Saturday, May 20th at 2:30. By the way, everybody, that is also Petapalooza on campus, which is a phenomenal event. There will be animals everywhere on campus and vendors. So if you want to come buy some cute clothing for your parrot, you should make sure to get here before the show and then stop in the theater where it'll be nice and cool at 2:30 and watch the show and then go shop some more, look at the pet parade, come early and get a parking spot. But after the show wraps on the 20th, we're going to have a cast party. And then on Monday the 22nd, we will start auditions for our second summer musical, which is the 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. It ran on Broadway for quite a long time in the early 2000s, and it is a great and hilarious story of 6 eighth graders entering a spelling bee where they hope to go national. And all of these 8th grade characters must be played by adults because it's a bit of an adult spelling bee. It's hilarious. It's considered a one-act musical with no intermission. I can't say enough. The actors who will play the 6 kids, they are getting such an acting gift because they're so unique and quirky, and the music is great. And
We will certainly have you back prior to that so we can talk a lot more about it. I'll tell you, yes, Steve?
You should audition.
You know, I don't have the best singing voice.
Oh, but Steve, though, does make a good point. For the musical, we audition our students, our faculty, our staff, alums, and community members. So anyone can come out and audition, and there is already audition information on the Central Penn website on our Capitol Blue Cross Theater web page. And it gives you all the character breakdowns and all that good stuff.
So everybody has to make plans to go out and see Truth. Wednesday, May 17th, Thursday, May 18th, and Friday, May 19th, all at 7:30. Saturday, May 20th at 2:30 for a special matinee. Guys, we're so proud of you. Everything you're doing, you represent the Central Penn family well, and I will be coming with my wife on Friday night. So I'm going to look forward to seeing what you guys have going on. So, guys, Steve, Jada, Darren, Janet, thank you all very much for spending your afternoon here with the Nightly News Podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, man. Turn up.
All right, so for Steve, for Jada, for Janet, and for Darren, this is Professor Paul Miller, and you've been listening to the Nightly News Podcast. We'll be right back with Professor Maria Thiaw to talk a little bit more about some of the things she's been working on lately with the American Griot Project.
I'm Dr. Melissa Whaler, Dean of Humanities and Sciences, and you are listening to the Nightly News Podcast.
Welcome to the Nightly News Podcast. We are so fortunate to be joined today by Professor Maria Thiaw. Maria, thank you so much for taking time out today and joining the Nightly News.
Thanks for having me.
Well, it's absolutely not a problem. You know, one of the things that we try to do here with the Nightly News is we try to promote some of the really awesome things that are going on campus or that our faculty are doing off campus in their own time, or as I always say, my spare time, what little spare time that I have, you know, in addition to doing our jobs. You know, I'm involved in a lot of things in the local area, but so are you. And I think that some of the things that you are doing are so absolutely fascinating. So I wanted to have you on, talk a little bit more about what you're doing in your, quote, spare time, and talk about how people on campus can maybe get involved or at least follow you and keep up with what you're doing.
Oh, that'd be great.
So the first thing I want to talk about with you is something that you've been working on for quite some time, and it's called the American Griot Project. Just because I would rather it come from you, can you talk to the audience a little bit about what is the American Griot Project?
It is a combination of oral history, research and the production of spoken word poetry. I have been going to different women, usually between the ages, I'd say the youngest is probably 65. So between the ages of 65 and 93, and interviewing them on camera about their memories of the 50s and 60s and dealing with the civil rights movement, dealing with racism at the time. And they've been telling me their stories. After I get the story, then I go take my time to see what from that story really stands out and inspires me. And I basically translate their story into poetry. So I have written poems from these different women's memories. And then in the end, what I would like to do is not only publish them in a book, but also create a performance called a choreo poem, similar to if you've seen the play or the film For Colored Girls Who Consider Suicide When the Rainbow Is Enough by Ntozake Shange. It would be that kind of style, or maybe a little bit if the Vagina Monologue, some people might have seen that. So it kind of weaves the poems together with one theme. And one theme that I saw repeated throughout the interviews is people perfectly qualified and able and ready to do something and constantly rejected merely because of race or gender.
How did you get involved with this project? I mean, obviously, you're a professor here at the college. You are researching an MFA program. You are, the head of the creative writing classes that we have. You've published multiple books. You're an absolute all-star. What was it? And I understand what you're saying about using this as inspiration, but still, with everything that goes into tracking these people down, to get, video equipment, to prepare, to go more than likely to them most of the time, yes?
Yes.
To do all of that, to me, seems like that's a lot of work. And so, a lot of people find inspiration all over the map, but I guess my question is, what was it about this specifically that really put you to the point where you wanted to start this? And when you first got started, what was it that said, this is perfect for me?
It is really hard. It has taken double the time that I originally thought it would.
I remember talking to you about this probably 2 years ago.
Yeah. 2 years ago is when I finally felt, get with it. It's been on paper and scribbled in your notebook for a while, and now it's time to get to it. And I pretty much started it back then about 2 years ago. And I thought it would take me a year. But honestly, with our schedule, you really don't have a lot of free time to write. And I often visited the women on the breaks. And so it's an ongoing project.
Well, sort of maybe from a different perspective, you'd mentioned the demographics of the ladies starting at 65 and up to 93. Sort of the unfortunate thing is here, Mother Nature always wins, Father Time, I suppose you would say. And it's sort of a situation where you only have a finite amount of time with these individuals, and I'm hoping that you're able to make sure that you get with them, before maybe they're too ill to be able to do something like this.
Right. There's been some amazing women. One lady, she was 93 years old, and she was just feisty and just had a very good memory, very sharp lady. But then her best friend from high school was with her, and she really couldn't talk to me very well. She was blind. She couldn't get around, and her memory had really faded.
And I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's also part of it as well. My grandma is one of my favorite people in my entire world, but the further along we get, I do notice her memory going. And the unfortunate thing is with her, she's told me so many wonderful stories about her, and I'm sure you've experienced the same thing with some of these ladies. Unfortunately, as you get a little older, the memory starts to go, and those people, they're a lot of times the only ones with that direct experience, and that firsthand knowledge of some of these things that have been happening over the years that they've had the opportunity to be a part of. Some good and some not so good, obviously. What is your long-term goal with this project? Where do you hope to see this project in maybe another 2 years?
Okay, well, I definitely would like to see a choreo poem formed from the poetry that I have. I would love, and we did a little taste of this with our Night Writers Creative Writing Club, but I would love to see our students get involved in performing these pieces on stage. I've already talked to theater director Janet Bixler about that. And so I definitely want to see that happen. I would love to also have a book produced that tells a little bit of the women's stories and also has the poetry published. So, and I would love to see an ongoing project that I could take to other schools, whether they be high schools or colleges, and work with students to do their own oral histories and creative writing projects.
You had mentioned books, and just as a quick aside, there was some conversation in my Communications 100 class today. We were talking about the publishing industry. From your perspective, as somebody, how many books have you published? I don't want to misquote here.
3.
And to be honest, I'm upset that I don't have any of them, and I hope that I can get a signed copy before the end of next week. But the way that things have happened with not only online retailers but also ebooks, where do you see the publishing industry, even in the modern day, or even looking forward 5 years as somebody who's walked through the publishing and the ordeals of having to get a book published?
It's interesting. A lot of the independent booksellers have gone under, and those are some of my favorite bookstores. They're just amazing. I was at one in Knoxville, Tennessee a couple weeks ago that I was like, this is my favorite place on the planet. I need to come back here.
That's exactly how I felt when I walked into the Midtown Scholar.
Yeah, the Midtown Scholar is amazing. It's a treasure chest. So we don't want to lose those, and we definitely should support them. But at the same time, you know, Amazon is a beast, and they definitely... They've really opened the door to opportunities for people to get published that might not have been published by the mainstream. So I don't think that we're going to lose books. They're changing form. But a lot of people still, they must have paper. You know, they want that.
A gentleman in one of the videos we watched today made the reference to books as similar to vinyl. So when tapes and CDs came out, everyone said, okay, well, the album is done. And now albums have made quite a renaissance to the point where most acts are putting out vinyl when they're putting out their CDs as well. And he made an analogy that maybe books are sort of like that. Yeah, there's a couple of different ways that you can get them, but sort of the old school fan and the true literature fan has to pick up that hard copy. Part of the reason that I buy books, I've got quite a collection of signed books. I've gotten to meet, anytime I see a book signing out there that I'm interested in, I always try to go there and because it gives me an opportunity to meet the author. And that's why I said I would love a signed copy of your book to put into my collection because I think that that's something really neat. You know, we mentioned the Midtown Scholar, and certainly... And of course, we're not being compensated to say this, but the next time you're downtown, you have to stop in. Not only do they have just a wonderful place for you to sit and relax, they've got a nice little coffee shop there, all kinds of really unique stuff. But to be honest with you, it is unbelievable. In fact, I'd probably been there about 5 times before I realized that there's a whole entire basement to the place.
It's amazing. I actually wrote a poem about the Midtown Scholar called The Treasures of the River Town, and I haven't published it yet, but I read it last night at the Scholar for the Almost Uptown Poetry Cartel. But it describes how this place is almost magical. Like, it just keeps going and going and going, and has tunnels underneath and art rooms, and it seems like it's almost like those books, Magic Tree House is like the library, you know? It's pretty amazing.
Now, one of the things about that I find unique, and I don't know how many people use this, but I actually, when I go to the Scholar, I actually go to their online website. And there's a feature in their website that you can go in and type author names or, subject matter, and it'll tell you exactly inside of the store where it is, because as you mentioned, the store is huge. I wouldn't even want to guess how many books they have there. Hundreds of thousands at least, if not more.
Definitely.
And often it is a little overwhelming when you first walk in. So what I've been doing is I go on the website, like if there's a specific author I'm looking for, I'll put it in and it'll tell me exactly what section it's in. Or if it's in the warehouse, because they have a huge warehouse of more books, you can go right in and pick it up right at the front door. All you have to do is, send them a message and they'll have it ready for you. So I've done that several times too. Just walked right in. My order was sitting there ready for me and picked it up and left. So, guys, if you've never been to the Midtown Scholar, do yourself a favor and please go down and check it out.
And they do a great job of promoting local authors like me as well.
So that's another question. Have you ever done any book signings or anything down there?
Yeah, I did. When my book, Talking White, first came out in 2013, they gave me a really nice book signing. I first had the reading. I had 75 people at my reading at Almost Uptown Poetry Cartel, which meets every Thursday night at the Midtown Scholar. And then that same Saturday, then I had a nice book signing there, and the community came in, and I sold and signed a lot of books.
Bet you had a hand cramp when you were done. Tell us a little bit about the Almost Uptown group that meets every Thursday night at the Midtown Scholar, 7:30, correct?
7-ish. 7 o'clock poet time, which is flexible.
But of course. So tell us a little bit how you got involved in that. And you just said that you read last night. Tell us a little bit more about your show last night.
The Almost Uptown Poetry Cartel was started many moons ago. I'd say probably like 15, 16 years. The real expert is Mike Lero Limpy. He
who is an advisor to this club but still has never been on a podcast yet.
Yes. So he was one of the initial people. And of course, the fearless leader is the great Marty S. Worthy. And we love him dearly. And he's a rock and roll professor and a surrealist poet himself, and a great promoter of poetry, local poets, and he's wonderful with the youth too. He's really helpful with the youth.
You know, I heard you. We were talking off air, and I heard you talking a little bit earlier. Talk to the audience about who are the type of people that come to your shows, and you'd mentioned that you'd started seeing some specific types of individuals, and you were really happy about that. Tell us a little bit about the types of people that come.
I was excited because I saw some really cool teenagers, really awesome teenagers. I know some of them go to Connections Academy and some from Harrisburg schools. Also, a Central Penn student showed up, and I was excited to see the young people there because it gives them some place to hang out and stay out of trouble, and also where they can express themselves. They're deep thinkers. You know, I met one amazing young man that is Native American and thinking about culture and history and activism. He was amazing. I met young Michaela with the coolest hair I've ever seen. She's got this major spiky mohawk. So very unique young people, and I really enjoyed getting to know them a little bit.
Have you found any of them or many of them have an interest in poetry as far as writing themselves?
Yeah. That's the other thing. They're so talented. I mentioned Michaela, just when she performs, holy. And many of them really good writers, performers. I heard a little singing. They're really talented. And going to poetry readings really helps people get better because you see other techniques, you practice, and it just helps you get better and better.
It's the same type of thing. Speaking to you, who is also one of the main oral communications teachers here, you know, it's not just about the delivery of the speech. It's about being a part of the speech process. It's about watching other people. Mm-hmm. In fact, one of the first exercises that I always do the first week of class is I make them watch JFK's Ask Not What Your Country Can Do For You, But What You Can Do For Your Country speech, mm-hmm. which a lot of people don't even remember that was his inaugural speech, versus there's a series of, it's called Bad Public Speaking Example, and there's like 5 or 6 of them. So I'm guessing that in that situation, they couldn't possibly be that bad. I'm assuming that they tried intentionally to do a poor speech just to kind of show what not to do. So what I have them do is I have them compare those 2 speeches, and I often get a lot of feedback that says, that very first assignment that we it really showed the difference and the importance of watching other people. So part of what I do is I make sure that I weight the class attendance on speech days very heavily to encourage people to come and watch other people give a presentation, because to be honest with you, that's how part of the reason I feel that I've gotten to be a good presenter, because I understand individuals like you are very, very talented and have a wonderful, way that they deliver presentations, and I look up to people like you and I try to emulate people like you.
Thank you.
But that's what the speaking situation's all about. You have to understand that people are going to be better than you. Borrow from them helps you get better.
Right.
One final thing we want to chat about. Maria, we've been talking about all the wonderful things that you've done off campus, the American Griot Project, the poetry reading that you had last night, the Midtown Scholar, and even to the point where you're, getting involved with some of the young poets. The last thing that I want to talk about, something that you do here on campus, and it's called the Night Writers. I'd love if you talk a little bit more about not only what the Night Writers do, how you're a part of it, but also when they meet, and we'll gladly get a plug out there for anyone who's interested in joining you.
Okay. Well, we started the Night Writers here back in 2011. It was myself and a student named Greg Jones, who's now a proud alumni, great writer. And it's a club for students that are interested in writing. They don't have to be experts. They don't have to be great at it or planning it for a career, but writing can be very cathartic and can be helpful to for relaxation and stress relief, and it can be fun. And so that's what we do in our meetings. We get together and we do different writing exercises and play with language. We enjoy it. Now, there's people interested in poetry and people interested in fiction. There's some bloggers that have been in Night Writers. All different kinds of writing. And we are also really working hard to incorporate online students and continuing ed students by using different tools. We Facebook Lived our meetings. We're starting to use Blackboard Collaborate. But for our on-ground students, we meet Tuesdays at 3:30 in the library's leadership room.
So one of the things that I know you and I, off air have been talking about is some hopeful synergy between the two groups, and I certainly look forward to the potential of that. Just to me, working with the clubs is so rewarding to help students develop a passion for something that I am myself so passionate about. Really changes the way and my perspective as far as why this job is meaningful to me. Of course, I love being in the classroom. I love that opportunity to be in front of students every day. But I think for me, working with the Nightly News has really taken my career to another level, and as far as how much I love my job. And certainly with any job, there's going to be ups and downs. But to know that I've got a group of people that relies on me to help develop the passion that I have so much. It really means a lot to me, and I'm sure that you mean quite a lot to your the individuals in your club as well.
Well, I have a wonderful group. Every time it changes, but we just continue to have a great group, really talented, fun, dedicated individuals. Our president is Danielle Payton. Her cousins are both alumni of Central Penn, and one's a professional blogger. I think she's working with NBC now, last I heard. Yeah, graduate of corporate communications.
Fantastic.
And but Danny's so super talented and super dedicated and really good at encouraging other students. We have Tita Gay in there, very active student leader on campus, and Caitlin Donnelly, who has great ideas. So we have a really nice time at our meetings, and then we plan special events. We once brought in a professional writer, Callie Meister, to during Women's History Month, and she gave a performance, and we sold jewelry to help women who have been dealing with human trafficking. We've had poetry slams on campus.
Always one of the most well-attended events on campus.
Yeah, every year. So look forward to that in the summer. And we have a showcase coming up in June 6th, where we're trying to do a blend of a short storytelling slam, an idea that we got from Caitlin Copus with her Untitled group in Harrisburg, and we're working on that and trying to incorporate music as well. So that's still in the planning stages, but we're looking forward to that by the end of the term.
Well, hopefully you enjoyed coming down today, and I'd like to extend an offer to you to come back before the showcase on June 6th, and we'll promote that.
Yeah, maybe you could come to the showcase if you want to broadcast.
Well, of course. I'm always interested in being involved in things that we do here on campus, without a doubt. We'll have to talk about that.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much, Professor Maria Thiaw, founder of the American Griot Project, advisor to the Night Writers, reads poetry every Thursday night at the Midtown Scholar in Midtown of Harrisburg.
Ooh, can I give a shout out too? Friday nights at the Midtown Scholar, the Writers Workshop meets as well, and just another great poetry group that's been in the city for almost 40 years now.
And our former vice president, Norm Geary, actually had the opportunity to intern with the Writers Workshop.
Yes,
so,
he did.
And he had a wonderful experience with them as well. So, Maria, thank you so very much for spending time with the Nightly News today, and I certainly look forward to having you on in the very near future.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome. So for Professor Maria Thiaw, this is Professor Paul Miller, and we'll catch you next time with the Nightly News Podcast.